Welcome to Assembly News Now. This is multimedia editor Jennifer Pierce, and here's what's happening with product assembly on May 7th. The reshoring trend continues. Volvo Trucks is building an assembly plant in Mexico. A UK startup automates installation of electrical wiring. And for our top story, a legendary auto plant retools to make EVs. And finally, a Tier 1 supplier builds a line to accommodate workers with disabilities. These Assembly News Now stories after a brief message from our sponsor ProMess, an industry leader for complete turnkey monitoring and motion systems. U.S. companies are increasingly importing goods made closer to home and relying less on goods from low-cost countries in Asia. That is the conclusion of the 11th Annual Reshoring Index, a barometer tracking the extent to which America is reshoring production. Compiled by consulting firm Kearney, the index focuses on imports and exports between the U.S. and 14 Asian countries, as well as Canada and Mexico. The index shows that American, Canadian, and Mexican production continues to take market share away from Asia. U.S. imports from Asia declined by $143 billion last year. Most of that decrease comes from a whopping 20% reduction in Chinese imports. However, for the first time since 2013, other Asian countries, including Vietnam and Malaysia, also saw a dip in imports. Speaking of nearshoring, Volvo will build a new assembly plant in Mexico to make heavy-duty trucks for the North American market. The factory will span 1.7 million square feet and produce trucks for both the Volvo and Mack brands. It will be a complete factory, including body and white production and a paint line. It's expected to open in 2026. British startup Q5D Technologies has developed a robotic cell that automatically applies electrical wires directly onto a part or assembly. Interchangeable tools can deposit insulated or bare wire onto a surface and terminate it onto an insulation displacement connector. Other tools can pick and place small parts or dispense polymers in 3D shapes. A tool that can apply printed electronics is being developed. In April, Q5D received $3 million in investment funding led by Lockheed Martin to bring the technology to market. And now for today's top story. In 1982, Honda opened a new assembly plant in Marysville, Ohio, becoming the first Japanese automaker to operate a factory in the U.S. Now, big changes are coming to this historic plant. Here to fill us in is Chief Editor John Sprovieri. John?
Thanks, Jennifer. The Marysville Assembly Plant has produced more than 14 million vehicles during its 42-year history. Now, Honda wants to turn that factory, along with plants in East Liberty, Ohio, and Anna, Ohio, into a hub for EV production in North America. The company wants 100% of global sales to be zero-emission vehicles by 2040. To meet that goal, Honda is investing $700 million to convert its Ohio factories to EV production. In Marysville, engineers are consolidating 2 production lines, tearing out much of Line 2 to enable assembly of both EVs and gas-powered vehicles on Line 1. The extra space will provide room to stage parts for both types of vehicles. It will also expand the quality area so workers can verify software-dependent vehicle functions. Elsewhere in the plant, another line is being built to assemble Honda's new intelligent power unit, which houses the battery pack and controller. Later this year, workers will begin training on the skills required to assemble EVs and power units. Honda's factory in Anna was built to make engines and transmissions for gas-powered vehicles. Now it is gearing up to produce the case for the power unit. The factory will get 6 high-pressure die casting machines to make the case, which is larger than anything Honda has ever cast before. It will be cast in 2 pieces and assembled by friction stir welding. The East Liberty plant will assemble EVs on a single line. Conveyors are being strengthened to bear the heavier weight of EVs, and the paint line is being expanded. As in Marysville, the quality area is also being expanded. Finally, in nearby Jeffersonville, Ohio, work is continuing on a battery manufacturing facility, a joint venture with LG Energy Solution. The $4 billion factory is expected to be completed by the end of the year. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, John. And finally, German Tier 1 supplier Gadia Automotive has ordered a new press hardening line that will be accessible by people with disabilities. Designed by Swedish press company AP&T, the line will enable staff with physical disabilities to monitor and manage the press hardening process without hindrance. The line will provide more space in front of the control panel to accommodate a wheelchair. The panel itself will also be positioned lower than usual. The line will be used to produce sheet metal parts for car bodies. In the U.S., the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is more than twice that for able-bodied people. Kudos to Gadia for creating a more inclusive shop floor. That's all for this edition of Assembly News Now. For all the latest news on assembly technology, visit assemblymag.com and follow us on social media. Thanks for watching, and tune in next month for another installment of Assembly News Now.